Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Whether you're watching this live or watching the replay on YouTube, welcome to this Hangout. My name is Greg Cooper from Front of Mind Coaching. I'm based in Bristol in the UK, and today I'm joined by Sarah Santacroce in Geneva, and we're going to be discussing LinkedIn etiquette. So I'd just like to introduce you to Sarah. How are you
Hi,
today, Sarah?
I'm very good. Thank you, Greg. Thanks so much for organizing this, and I look forward to our chat together.
Great. So Sarah and I often work together. We're both LinkedIn specialists, and we work with small, medium-sized businesses. Um, and we've done a number of these hangouts together now. Although I must admit, I'm a little bit rusty because I haven't done one for a little while. So look out for the deliberate mistakes. We're aiming to run for 30 minutes today. If there's a lot of questions, then we're both fine to go on for another 10 minutes, but it definitely won't be longer than 40 minutes. And if you're watching, if you're watching live, please put your questions in the thread, and we'll be picking up those and attempting to answer as many as we can. So let's get started. LinkedIn etiquette. Uh, it's a minefield, like all etiquette rules. There are some rules that everybody knows, and there are some rules that are unwritten. LinkedIn is no exception. So, for example, every group has its own set of rules, and the group manager will determine those, although they are not obliged to publish them. So it's very easy to actually transgress and find yourself in deep trouble in the groups. Um, there's also a LinkedIn user agreement, which very few people have read, although there are some things in the LinkedIn user agreement which we will cover briefly today, and we can put a copy of that in the thread for you if you'd like to look at it. So let's get started. I'd like to start with a question that comes up very often, and that's about, we're going to start with connections. Who should I connect to, and particularly, should I connect to someone I don't know? That's a very common question. I'm going to ask Sarah for her initial thoughts on that, and we'll start to pick this apart together then.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it's a question that I always get to at trainings or online or anywhere, and I think most people are kind of intimidated by something we just mentioned in the green room, this being a little note on the invitation that you send out. So when you click on someone's profile, you click on connect, it gives you that drop down of categories, and then it asks you to, if you want to add a personal message. And underneath it says in fine print, only connect with people you know on LinkedIn. And so we were just commenting on this before, and you confirmed again, and it's true that it's written in the user agreement of LinkedIn that you should only connect with people that you know on LinkedIn. Now, we are not, both of us are not affiliated with LinkedIn, so I guess we're free to say whatever we feel is correct or right to do. And so Greg and I both think that that's just not what LinkedIn is for. LinkedIn is to network. And so it does not make sense to only connect with people that you know. Otherwise, you're really limiting your network. So that's the comment on the that little fine print on the invitations. Now, I think everybody needs to have their own connection strategy. They need to define some criteria and then decide if they get a connection request, does that person fit their criteria? And if it does, go ahead and accept it. That's my wise wisdom here concerning connections. What do you recommend your clients, Greg?
Yeah, I think you and I have both been on LinkedIn for some time, Sarah. And when I first came on LinkedIn, the instruction was only connect with people who you would personally recommend. And so at that time, typically people would have 200-300 connections, and that would be it. That would be your network. But they were all people that you would be willing to recommend. So things have changed since then. It's not unusual now, particularly in the States, to see people with 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 connections. People in Europe tend not to have quite as many as that, but still there's a trend towards having more connections. And the truth is that the more connections you have, the more opportunities that you uncover. So I kind of think there are the three connection strategies that people tend to adopt. There's the one that says I only connect to people I've met, and there's the opposite extreme, which is I connect to absolutely everybody. And what I suggest to my clients is somewhere in between, to connect broadly but intelligently. So for example, I had an invitation from a landscape gardener in South Africa recently, and there's really no value in my connecting to that person. So I just wouldn't connect. I probably connect about 65% of the people who send me connection requests.
Yeah, it needs to make sense, and especially if you're a business owner, it needs to make sense to your business model. If you were running a local business, then you probably would prefer to connect to people locally. If you're running an online business, then demographics are not really a barrier, and you can connect with people from all over the world. So really depends on your connection strategy. And maybe another point I think we also wanted to touch on that is that you can also disconnect from people after. If you do realize that you've connected and then they keep spamming you, or they are just sharing things that are not of interest to you, you can just disconnect again, and so kind of kick them out of your network. And you do that by going into your contacts and then looking for the person, and then just click on the little, I think it's an arrow next to the more, and there you will see that it will say remove the connection. So the other person will not notice that you have removed them unless they go back to your profile and then all of a sudden realize, oh, we're not connected anymore. But usually most likely they won't do that, or if they do, you can just fake that it was a mistake or something.
And I think most people don't realize you can remove connections, do they, Sarah?
No, that's true. Yeah, because it's very hidden in the contacts back there. Yeah.
There's one more point I'd add on while we're talking about the connections here, the etiquette of declining somebody, because most people will accept or reject or decline a connection in the little box that appears in the inbox at the top of the screen there. It gives you two options, a tick for accept and a cross for reject. So if you click on the reject, you then get another box that comes up that says I don't know this person, or this was spam. Now if you click on either of those options, the person will get black marks from LinkedIn. Certainly if you click on the spam, this was spam option, and also if you click on I don't know this person, if someone, I think is it 5 or 7, Sarah, those I don't knows result in some penalties.
I think it's 5. Yeah.
5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can unwittingly lead to someone's account being restricted by LinkedIn by pressing either of those two options. There is a third option which is not so obvious, which is just above those options is a cross, and you simply click on that to disappear the box. And that's the one I would recommend, because in that way you're not giving anybody any sort of negative results from declining.
Didn't it used to say before just ignore, and so now that basically the cross replaced the ignore,
that's
which,
right.
In my opinion, ignore was better, because that's really what you want to do. You would want to ignore the invitation.
Yeah, I mean that should be an option, shouldn't it? LinkedIn are being a little bit unhelpful there and encouraging people to get negative negative results unnecessarily, in my opinion.
Yeah. One last thing, maybe concerning the connections. If in your news feed you do get too many posts from somebody, and we're going to talk about posts next, what to post and so on. If you do get too many updates from one person, and it's kind of like updates that are not of interest to you, you can also just hide them in the news feed. So you hover over their update, and just on the right it will say hide, and so that doesn't remove them as a connection, but it just hides them in the news feed, and that's kind of a nice way to stay connected but not get bombarded by too many updates from this person.
Yeah, I did that once to one of my connections who posted 59 times in one morning, and
Yeah, that's a
I
bit
couldn't believe it.
overkill.
I couldn't believe it. But needless to say, I've hidden all his posts now. Um, okay, let's talk about personalization of connection requests, Sarah, because I get a lot of people say to me, well, hey, I get these requests and the person hasn't even bothered to personalize it for me. So what do you think? Should we be personalizing all our connections? What's your view on that, Sarah?
Well, yeah, I think definitely, personalize each and every invitation you send out. I don't blame the people who don't do it because most of the time they just don't know that they should be doing it, or they just think, oh, this is a nice, little default message that LinkedIn gives me, so I'll just use that. But I think it's kind of like going to a networking event and not introducing yourself, but just handing your business card. And it's kind of rude. So the proper LinkedIn etiquette here, in my opinion, is to always personalize.
I'd completely agree with you on that, Sarah. However, I would also just observe that most people don't actually see the personalized requests, do they?
You
Because
told me that, yeah, and I know I was.
most people, in my experience
Yeah,
here, will
yeah,
will actually go to the box at the top of the screen and either click on the tick or click on the
yeah,
cross.
yeah. Where I always see my personalized invitations in my inbox. So I don't
Mm,
know. It'd be a good test. So maybe the audience can kind of respond and say,
mm.
do you guys see the email first with the personalized invitation and can then go to your LinkedIn inbox, or is it the other way around? We'd be curious to hear. If you could just answer that question in the comments below, that'd be great. So yeah.
And I've got a bit of a cheat to ask you about here, your views on this. One of my customers, Teresa in Germany, I was talking to her about sending out invitations of the day and talking about personalizing them and how to do that. And she says, I always send invitations to people that says, we've done business together
Hmm.
because that works. I don't need their email address. So that's kind of like a bit of a cheat, isn't it?
Yeah. Then again, I'm using friends, and I can't, presume that they're all friends. So
Yeah.
in a way, yeah. Don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, but
No,
I do
her
tell
point,
my clients to use friends, even if it's not true.
yeah, her point was that people don't get to see what category it is anyway. And actually, when we had the conversation, I I thought she was right. But today, I've gone back through some of my archived invitations, and it does actually say what category that people have entered on the connection request.
Really,
It
I
does.
I wasn't aware of that. Where does it say that?
If you go into your invitation archive in your messages,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So people would have to go through the archive to notice it.
Well, no, they just have to go through the inbox. Sorry.
Okay, okay. So, because
So,
usually when you do get an invitation, it doesn't say which category it is.
hmm. But
So
certainly
it's
some of
maybe
my
only once you've accepted the connection that you know um, which
could
category.
be,
Yeah,
could
because
be.
it doesn't say in the invitation request that I know. Yeah. So maybe it's once you've accepted because it applies the tag, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
bit more
Anyway,
investigation required on that one.
yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Now
Let
another
me
one that.
just let me just interrupt you. I have
Yeah.
Mark Bang. Hi, Mark.
Oh,
Who's
hey,
has a
Mark.
question here?
Yeah.
Says Greg, since you're offering consulting and training for social media and LinkedIn, do you look at people with incomplete profiles as potential clients? And if so, how does that factor into your LinkedIn networking strategy? How do you know if someone has value until you open a channel of communication with them?
Yeah, that's very true. Um, Quite a lot of people that come on my public courses and who I work with online have got less than 100 connections. So they are potentially, yes, they are good prospects for me in that sense. However, someone who has a relatively small number of connections, is not active on LinkedIn, probably doesn't understand how um, how effective LinkedIn is as a sales and marketing tool. So in some ways, I actually find the opposite can be true, Mark, that someone who has 500 or more, or certainly 400 or more, is actually an easier person to convince that perhaps they need to get some more skills and there are some more features of LinkedIn that they could use. Um, that's my experience. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the same because they think, oh, I have all these connections and LinkedIn is not working for me. That's
Yeah.
usually the answer I get. It's like, oh, I have 700 connections and they're all proud that they have so many connections. And they're like, but I'm not getting any business from it. So I think it's only at a later stage that they realize there is
Mm,
potential.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a good question.
Yeah.
Can I add, or is it okay to add my LinkedIn list to my mail as to my mailing list?
Mm. No, big no no. It's funny because I just disconnected from a lady who did that just before we jumped on the call. So I connected, probably a week ago, and sure enough, today I receive her, email, and clearly you could tell it's a list. It didn't even have an unsubscribe button, and so I replied to her, please take me off your list. And I actually went ahead and took her off my contacts in LinkedIn as well. So, no, that's definitely not good behavior on LinkedIn to just assume that everybody who's connected with you on LinkedIn is also interested in your newsletter.
There's another point here from Mark Van, Sarah. He says that many times he's not connected with someone, and then found later that there was a message in the he had a message, a personalized message, um, in his inbox, and that happened to me recently. Actually, I had a request from somebody. It was an Asian member, and I didn't recognize them, and I didn't think that it was someone that was appropriate for me to link to, so I sort of declined the invitation. And later I found that there was a personalized message for me in my inbox, and they were asking me if I would be able to help them with some training. So, but at that point I'd blown it. So it's an interesting point. I just want to say hi to a couple of people. Hi to Sheila Hensley, thanks for watching, and Tim Sweeney. Great to see you, and for Peter Feltham and Karen Chin. Please put any questions you've got in the thread, and we'll do our best to get to them. So, okay, so the next question on our list is what to post. And what would you say about that, Sarah? What sort of things, or what sort of things should we be avoiding posting?
Hmm. Um, well, we all know that LinkedIn is a professional network, so I think the one guideline is to really just post professional things. So anything that is of interest to your industry and to your network, to keep them updated in terms of professional content. So uh, articles you read, even if it's videos, but again, should be professional content, and that's all okay to post. In terms of what not to post, maybe Greg, you want to go first?
Yeah, well, generally I would say avoid games, puzzles, pictures of babies, and particularly pictures of cats. Um, this is a business network, you know. It's okay occasionally to post something a little bit more personal, but primarily this is a business network, and it should be, as Sarah said, business focused posts. What people appreciate.
Also, it's not just you posting them, but you participating in them.
Hmm.
Because every time you participate in one of
Yeah.
these crossword puzzles, or which word do you see appear, or math problems, every time you participate, your whole network gets to see that. And so you just think about what kind of reputation you want among your connections, if they really need to see that you have nothing else to do than participate in those games. So just be aware of your participation as well, not just what you're posting.
We had an interesting question this morning as well to me from Juan Carlos Giraldo about quotes.
Hmm.
Is it okay to post quotes? And we were having a chat about that in the green room before the hangout.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying it depends. Quotes are almost in the same category as the games, but some of the quotes are, inspiring and they're, business oriented or sometimes just motivational. And so for me, somebody who doesn't share one quote per day, but it's an occasional quote, I don't mind that. Also depends, of course, on his business. And if you're a coach, for example, yeah, quotes and motivation and all of that is part of your business. So again, I think it depends on how often you post them, and don't go liking every quote you see, because again, whatever you like, people will see it as coming from you.
I think I've changed my opinion on this, Sarah, since we were talking earlier on, and I think you persuaded me that it's okay to post some quotes sparingly.
Yeah, yeah,
So the next topic is a big one, really. It's spam,
yeah.
and in particular, I'm thinking here of groups. It's a bit of a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because it's hard to define spam. Spam for certain people is different than other people might perceive it. And so um, I think really what spam is when you are trying to overly promote your business or your services. So that's definitely not seen very well in the groups. So if you're just going out there and saying, I offer this and this service, or buy this and this product, on most groups you'll just get kicked out or blocked, and it's just not welcome. Um, so be very careful, because there's also this whole deal about the LinkedIn prison, as they refer to it. When you just get spammed in one group, you're then blocked from posting on all the other groups. Um, I don't know if you have an update on that, Greg. Actually, has there been any changes, or it's still the
Yeah, there
same?
have been some changes actually, and I know Mark Vank, who's watching the Hangout, was very influential in bringing this to people's attention in the early days. When if you if you upset a group manager and the group manager blocked you for that group, you were then blocked and put on moderation across every group that you were in. So since then, things have got a little bit easier, and I believe now that if you are moderated by a group manager, you still get to be moderated across all the groups. However, the punishment will only last for about 2 weeks. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's a little bit more reasonable, if you like,
Yeah.
than it used
Mhm.
to be.
That's
But I
good.
think one of the challenges with the groups is that every single group will potentially have a different set of rules. So, I'm co-managing a group in America where the group owner is very strict. No links, no links at all. And you know that that's a really great group. It's a social media group, and there are lots of discussions. The ratio of comments to discussions is very high. And then if you look at another group, um, thinking of a big social media marketing group, I won't mention which one, which has something like a million members in it, and pretty much everything is allowed in that group, but the ratio of comments to discussions is very low, extremely low.
Yeah.
So I guess really the lesson there is to be appropriate and to read the rules in the group. And what about link dumping, Sarah? Because that's a bit of a scourge in groups, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's bad for groups, but it's even bad for your newsfeed, because if you share, your blog posts on all of your 50 groups, for example, at the same time, which you could technically do, um, not only does this spam the group that you're sharing it on, but it also spams all the people on your network, because if they are part of several of the same groups, which most of the time is the case because you're somehow in the same network or in the same local area or something like that, well, they will keep getting these updates several times as well on their newsfeed. So, for example, Greg and I most definitely share, more than one group. And so if I post it on 2 or 3 of these groups, he'll get that same message in his newsfeed 3 times. So definitely not as good strategy. And you also have to have time to be able to interact. If there's engagement, you don't just want to dump and run and then not engage back if there's questions or feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, personally, in the groups that I've run, I'm okay about people posting a blog post or a link, provided that there's a commentary there and that the commentary is sufficient that people can choose whether or not they go to view the link.
Yeah.
So, it can't just be a discussion straight from the posting without having to view the link. And I think that's okay. I think sometimes it can add real value because if it's a particularly good article.
Yeah, it's kind of like on Google Plus. You don't just dump a link. You kind of go into the topic and tell people a bit what you're posting. And it's the same on the LinkedIn group.
Just a little shout out here to Stan Bush, who's joined us. Nice to see you, Stan. And we're just getting near to the 30-minute mark, so we're going to pick up any more questions that happen to be in the thread. And while we do that, Sarah, would you mind just having a check through those, please?
Yep.
What I'll do, I'll tell you a tale that happened to me this week, actually, salutary tale. I actually promoted this Hangout on Google Plus, and I promoted it to the wrong circle. And boy, did I find out. I got a lot of feedback to say that this was spam and why was I sending this out to people. So that was a good lesson for me. That's the first time that's really happened to me, but I just wasn't really thinking properly when I shared it to an inappropriate circle. It's not a pleasant experience, I can tell you. So
you're so brave to share this here online, Greg.
Yeah.
So honest. I just want to mention a question from Tim. He's saying, are there any third-party tools for managing our LinkedIn connections and groups? I've experimented with Nimble and Hootsuite, but I'm curious if there are others worth looking at.
Yeah, I believe Octopost
Yes.
is very good, although I haven't used it personally. I know Vivica von Rosen, who's a big LinkedIn specialist, uses it and really rates it. Do you know of any more, Sarah? Hootsuite, obviously, that Tim's mentioned.
Yeah, I was also thinking of Octopost, but I think you need a paid account with that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Octopost is it was designed with LinkedIn in mind, particularly. So yeah. I think it's particularly good for people who are on the LinkedIn platform as their primary platform.
Yeah. Maybe we have 2 more minutes. Why don't we bring up endorsements and what the etiquette is there? Why don't you say what you think about endorsements?
Yeah, a lot of people say to me that why do endorsements have value? People endorse me for things they don't know me about, etc., etc. And should I endorse people? It's just a sort of you scratch my back, I scratch yours. So the question there is, if someone endorses me, should I endorse them back? And my view is no. In endorsements, we're all responsible for endorsing people with integrity. This platform is a people platform. It depends on our own integrity to keep the platform integrity going. So I will only endorse people for specific things that I know that they know about. If someone endorses me, I will write back and thank them. But if I don't know anything about their skills or their knowledge in particular skills, I won't endorse them back. Sarah, your view?
Yeah, the same. I don't give endorsements easily, so if you get one from me, it's real. I think it's I still think it's a gimmick. It's definitely there to stay, and we know that we have to deal with these endorsements. What I recommend my clients is they actually do fill out the whole list of skills. It sometimes sounds a bit scary to them. They're like, "Wow, I don't have 50 skills." Yes, you do, because a lot of these skills are just, you know, 5 different ways of explaining the same thing. And so I think it's better to fill out that whole list so people don't actually recommend new skills for you, because they can do that if that list is not full, and then endorse you for skills that you don't even have. So that's why I think it's worth going through that list and filling it out. And then if people do think you have those skills, they can endorse you for them.
Great. I've just looked in the thread. There are no more immediate questions. Mark Fang has made a point about that he thinks that cat memes are specifically prohibited by the LinkedIn user agreement. Uh, so I will, as I mentioned earlier on, I'll post the LinkedIn user agreement in the thread shortly because it is worth having a quick look at. Although, as we discussed very early on, um, not sure how much one can go entirely by some of that. But we'll leave that for you to decide. So I think we're just about done for today. We will come back and answer any questions in the thread that come up. Thank you ever so much for watching. I've enjoyed it. Hope you have, Sarah, and I hope all you viewers have too. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.